Hey gang, what's up? Hope all's well and everybody's world out there, and thanks for tuning in to the video today. Much appreciated. And today I'm going to give you guys some tips and have a little discussion about catching hogs in early April. And I've sort of got a couple different ways I like to go about that. I'm going to share with you guys today. I think you might find it interesting. And hey, before we get started, got a little bit of housekeeping here. First of all, just wanted to remind everybody tonight at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, Johnny and I have our weekly Tuesday night podcast on Fish the Moment Live. This is not the Fish the Moment channel, but the Fish the Moment Live channel. And this is our weekly podcast. Tonight we're going to be talking about, is it ethical to fish for bedding fish? It ought to be a really good time. This is the largest weekly live podcast in the country. So hope to see you guys there. It's interactive. Guys can ask questions. It's a good time, man. We'll have a good time. So hope to see you there. And also, just a quick reminder, this Thursday, Johnny's got his next virtual seminar, his next electronics seminar. And April 15th, Johnny and I have our next dual seminar. We're going to do it on post-spawn patterns. So you can sign up for both of those at fishthemoment.com. So much appreciated. And first of all, and one more little thing here before we get going, is some of these baits that I'm going to show you today are pretty unique. And if you guys are interested in ordering some of them, I've included the Tackle Warehouse, the Fish the Moment Tackle Warehouse link in the description and in the comments section here. And if you guys would like to order some and you guys want to support the channel, support my channel, support what Johnny's doing with Fish the Moment, and then you can order through that link and we get a little bit of the profit on that. So anyway, got that all that stuff out of the way. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about early April, what I call hog hunting. The late pre-spawn, in my opinion, is one of the best times of year that you're going to catch the biggest bass of the whole year. It seems like to me that, and I think statistics will back this up. If you look at most of the really big bass in the lake that you fish, and it doesn't matter if you're in Texas or Florida, you know, a 10-pound plus fish is big, and if you're like in my part of the country, Missouri, it's a 7-pound plus fish is really big. So it varies from state to state what a big bass is. But normally in the late pre-spawn, late March, first part of April, that's the time that you're going to catch your biggest bass of the year. Right before these bass start spawning, it's when they're the heaviest. It's when they're really positioned to be caught. Because I think most of the time, a really big bass that like the 1%, you know, population of a bass fishery, I think a lot of these fish are just uncatchable most of the year. I think a lot of them just get out in the open water and they roam around out there. They swim free. They just maybe look for shad. They're pretty hard to catch. But in the late pre-spawn, like we are right now, this is the time of year they get up in those zones, that 5 to 10 foot of water where, you know, that you can catch them. But a lot of it depends on the lake that you're fishing. So the two baits that I want to talk about today they're big bass baits. You're not going to get many bites on them, I can promise you. But I promise you, when you do get a bite on them, it's the right one. It's the right size of fish that you're looking for. And the baits that I'm talking about are swim baits. There's two that I'm going to cover. One is the Megabass 262T glide bait. This is like I said, this sucker weighs 6 ounces. You know, it's almost 12 inches long. It's huge. And the next is the Megabass Mag Draft, the 10-inch Megabass Mag Draft. These two baits are absolutely massive in size. I'm going to see if I can have just a regular bait here. Well, I've got my little worm that I've done this morning. This is the little ringworm I did the video on yesterday. Here's the size comparison of the ringworm to the 262T, as you can see. It's a massive bait. But I'm telling you guys what, the big giant bass will hit this. And one of the best resources to see what I'm talking about here, as far as you want to see some footage on this, is go check out Oliver Nye's channel. His channel is called Big Bass Dreams, and Oliver is one of the foremost big bass experts in the United States. And that's basically all he does is throw these big baits. And he has some real good videos of him catching some giants on the 262T and also on the 10-inch Mag Draft. So check that out on Big Bass Streams. And actually, as some of you guys know, Oliver won the Big Bass Bash at Lake of the Ozarks a couple of years on this very bait up at Lake of the Ozarks. He won $100,000 on it. So you're going to get some giants when you fish it. But anyway, let's get back to, let's talk a little bit about these big giant glide baits and swim baits and the situations you use them in and everything. These are extremely situational baits. And for me, these big giant glide baits and these big giant swim baits like that, this is the time of the year they shine. Now you can get some bites at some other times of the year, maybe a little bit in the post spawn, and then again there's a little bit of a window in the fall time of the year that they may work. But the time that they're at their best and you have your best odds of catching one are right now, when that water temperature is in the upper 50s, when it starts to get around 60 degrees and those big fish are starting to move shallow to look spawning. This is the time of year you want to fish this. We're right in the middle of it right now. So a couple different things to look for when you're fishing this thing and how to work the bait. You need to throw these baits work best on obvious places like main lake and secondary points, around bridge pilings, around boat docks, the obvious structure that you have to pull a bass away from. Because the thing about like the big giant swim baits like the Magdraft, the 10-inch Magdraft, is this gets their attention a lot of times. The times that I have fished these baits, and I've got a little bit of dirt time with them. I fished them, you know, for about the last 3 years. But since they are so situational, I haven't had a chance to really commit to them for long periods of time like Oliver has. But my experience with these baits is the reason you want to fish those obvious places is you're looking to pull the biggest fish up to look at these things on the obvious structure. And a lot of times those big fish are living on points, they're living around docks, you know, they're living in that type of stuff that has access to deep water next to it. And the thing that you're going to have with these particular baits is you're going to have a lot of followers on the things. You say, for example, if I went to Table Rock Lake right now with this thing, and if I put either one of these baits in my hand at Table Rock Lake, I would expect to get probably maybe 3 to 5 bass that will look at the thing, you know, that actually show themselves. And this is what's so addicting about this way of fishing with these giant baits, is you get these giant bass that follow the things in. I mean, I've had 8 and 10 pounders look at this thing, get right behind it, follow it in, and not bite it. That's the drawback you have with these things, and why you can kill a lot of time with them, you know, especially in a tournament, simply because they draw those big ones up. But what happens is, say, for example, say if I went to Table Rock for a week solid, and say that I had, in 7 days of fishing, from 8-hour days, I had 15 bass come up and look at these two baits. If I'm lucky, there's going to be one of those bass that actually bite it. There's very few fish that are going to bite this thing because it's such a massive bait. But the ones that you do get commit to it are usually those 7-pound plus fish. And there's a couple different things you can do to sort of get past that frustration. When you're fishing like the 262T or these giant glide baits, most of the time I'm fishing them like a jerk bait. You know, these things, you know, they go like this. If you just reel them in, they just sort of go side to side. But when I fish them, I like to fish them just like hard, like with a jerk bait, and they dart like that. And then they dart sharp like that, and then real sharp like that. And the times that I have gotten these fish to eat them is like when I'll see one tracking behind this bait or something like that, working it. That's when I work it super hard. I mean, just pop the thing super hard, because when you do that, you don't give them time to look at the bait. And that's the last thing you want to do, is to give them time to study a bait this big, because if they study it, they're not going to bite it. So when you do see a fish tracking it, that's when you have to speed that bait up hard and work it super hard. And a lot of times that will just trigger that reaction strike in the fish. And it's the same with the Magdraft. With the 10-inch Magdraft, most of the time with this one, I'm using a slow, steady retrieve, keeping my rod tip high, trying to keep this bait, you know, just barely inside or just barely out of sight. And, you know, on the Magdraft, since I do fish it deeper than the glide bait, all the time, the glide bait most of the time is in sight, but sometimes I'll fish the 10-inch Magdraft out of sight. So you don't really know if you need to speed it up, if there's one behind it. But if you do see one behind the big Magdraft, it's the same thing. I just start reeling faster and twitching and trying to get that reaction strike out of it. So these baits, both of these baits weigh 6 ounces. So that's like a saltwater lure. So you've got to have some heavy equipment to throw it. I throw mine on the Megabass Warhammer. It's close to an 8-foot rod, heavy, extra heavy action on the thing, and that thing's not even, you know, heavy enough. I know Oliver uses, Megabass offers some other stiffer rods out there that a lot of people use, but the Warhammer is the one I use with it most of the time. You want to use some type of a larger capacity spool reel. I just use my same bait caster reel simply because I don't fish these baits enough to like put the investment into the special equipment like guys like Oliver do. But it gets me by when I do fish it. And then I'm fishing these baits all the time on 25-pound test Seaguard and VizX line. I don't like braided line with the thing because it's a sight bait. I don't want the fish to see the line. And I do want a little bit of give. Plus, I think you can get better action on the bait with fluorocarbon line. So heavy action 8-foot rod, 25-pound test fluorocarbon line. And then the rest of it is just throwing the thing, because one of the biggest challenges about these big baits like this is throwing the things. I mean, they require a two-handed cast, and when this thing hits the water, it's like you threw a brick out there in the water, because it makes a big splash, and it makes such a big splash you're wondering, you probably think you're going to scare every fish in the lake away. But normally the bites that I get on these things are close to the boat. This thing will cast a mile, and it takes a long time to work it back, because I mean, you can throw it so far out there and you're not working it real fast. But I'm going to guess that probably 80 to 90% of the fish that I get to hit these things are within 20 foot of the boat. It's like they follow the thing for a long time. It gets their attention out of that deeper water and they follow it. And right before it gets to the boat, they have to make that decision whether to bite it or not. But anyway, it's like I said, big bass lures. The old saying about, you know, big lures produce big fish is true. I mean, that is one of the truest statements there are in bass fishing. And if you're going to catch big ones with any type of predictability and regularity, you have to fish these big baits, because you'll catch an occasional big one just fishing, just on jigs and crankbaits and that type of stuff, but it's very random, and it's very unusual to have any type of consistency. But if you guys go out and throw these big baits, you know, these big, you know, 10-inch swim baits, and commit to it, you know, you're going to see your odds of catching those big ones go way up. You're also going to see a lot of swings and misses. You're going to have days where you go out and throw this thing and you can throw it for 7 or 8 hours and not get a bite on it. So it's sort of like, to me, it's not, I don't consider these tournament baits. I consider these baits that, yeah, if I have a big limit in the boat, like if I've got a 20-pound plus limit, I may throw it around a little bit. But for me, these big giant swim baits are more recreational. It's like when I get the right situations and I got a little bit of time off, I'll go put these on and I'll throw them just to try to catch a giant bass on them, and which they will produce giant bass. So anyway, guys, give it a try. You know, man, I say anyway a lot. Does you guys ever notice that? It's like, well, anyway, I don't even know I'm saying that. It's just like something that sort of happens now, or I'm not even aware of. Give these baits a try. Just get out there and, you know, get your heavy tackle, get you a couple, you know, get them at Tackle Warehouse, 262T Megabass glide bait, Megabass 10-inch mag draft. And before you go out, watch Oliver and I's videos, so that'll give you a little bit of confidence that a bass will hit these things, and it'll get your fever up. When you see Oliver catching these big giant bass on this thing, you know, you'll want to throw one too. So it's a fun bait to throw. It's not for every day out there, but if you're looking for a big bass, biggest bass of your life, or having a chance at a big bass, right now is the time to throw it. I mean, we are in the heart of giant swim bait season. Best time to throw it. So thanks for checking out the video, guys. Much appreciated. If you like this video, please hit that like button, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't, man. 60% of you guys watching these videos aren't subscribing. You know, doesn't cost anything. It's free. You can unsubscribe at any time. It helps me and my family out a lot if you do that. So it'd be much appreciated. So we'll talk to y'all later. But thanks for tuning in.